What's good, everybody? Merry Christmas. Aggie Coach here, and welcome to another video. Okay, so this is a new series of videos that is coming because we have a lot to talk about as we get ready to move into 2019. 2018 was a rough year for me. There was so much going on career-wise. I have had to completely change my entire lifestyle. So as I was going through that transition, it made it extremely difficult for me to have time to shoot games for season 5. Now that that is all settled, I am getting ready to reboot season 5. Now, we're one game into season 5. Michigan played at home against Ohio State. You guys saw that game. Ohio State was able to pull out the win. So, in the future, right, all of these things are going to have huge implications into how the FAT8 works and what is going to be happening with the teams. So that's what this video is going to talk about, because this is a complete FAT8 reboot, right? So for 2019, everything that we've done for the last 5 years, I am completely rebooting. I am returning back to the beginning, and I am finally going to do the FAT8 the way that my dad and I originally intended to do it in the first place. Now, the question that you guys have is, well, Aggie Coach, why didn't you do it that way in the first place? Well, there was a lot going on when I first got started with this, and I'm not going to get into all of that, but essentially, there was too much about miniature football, electric football, to learn. Like, yeah, we have a lot of experience with college football and with high school football. My father coached, and I played, and he played. However, making that translate into an electric football game is a challenge, especially when you don't really understand a lot about electric football, right? And at that time, the rule system that we were developing was still in that developing stage. And then there was a lot of people involved and a lot of things coming from every direction, and there was, businesses, and there was figures, and it was so much coming from so many different directions that made it very difficult to focus on the things that we originally talked about. And then on top of that, then there was the issue of, well, how do you do it? Because at the time, it would have cost a lot of money to pull off the things that Daddy wanted, right? So Daddy wanted, Daddy wanted the coaches polls and the media polls and votes for the first place, and he wanted conference standings. He wanted divisional standings. He wanted to see the recruiting that's occurring over the course of the season. He wanted to see what teams is targeting what kinds of recruits, and he wanted to have impact players and just all of these kinds of things that you have in college football, and the stories, and the ambiance, the atmosphere, all of these things around the figures, around the athletes, the focus on the student athletes. Like, that's the kind of thing that Daddy wanted. And it's very expensive to do, because you need to have the software, you need to have the technology, you need to have the equipment to be able to shoot these things the right way. So that makes it very, very difficult, and that requires a lot of time. So, in the first 4 years, we just didn't have the time to do it. And then when we did try to do it, it was such a difficult task to pull off. It was just too hard to do. And then on top of that, you have, your own families that you have to take care of. So, 2019, I'm finally going to do the things that Daddy and I talked about when we first conceptualized the FAT8. So, I'm wiping away everything, and I'm rebooting the system, and we're starting over for 2019. So, we got one game in season 5. We're continuing season 5, but everything is changing, guys. Everything is changing. So let's go ahead and get into it First, I'm going to pull up the graphic here. The first thing that we are going to get into is the FAT8 divisions, right? So really quickly, I'm going to go through what the FAT8 teams are. And I'm going to show you guys the different divisions, right? We have two divisions. We have the franchise division and we have the dynasty division, okay? Now, sticking with the name, right? Fantasy Athletic Teams. That is what FAT stands for, right? So it was originally the athletic teams that Daddy and I wanted to see. We wanted to add our fantasy world, right? So we wanted to add our favorite college teams and have them playing against our favorite HBCU schools, right? So we're going to stick with that. So here are the teams that we have in the conference, starting with the franchise division. Okay, so now, with the franchise division, we have 8 teams. Sticking with the number 8, we have 8 teams in the franchise division and 8 teams in the dynasty division. So let's look here at the franchise division. We have Central Arkansas, nationally rated number 4 in the FAT8. We'll get into the polls later. We have Florida A&M, nationally rated number 6. Then we have Clemson. This is their first year in the conference. We're going to talk about also how teams get in the conference and how teams can get kicked out of the conference. We have North Carolina Central, who are right now nationally rated 5th in the FAT8 conference. Boise State, who is nationally rated 8th in the FAT8 conference. And then we have Georgia, the University of Howard University, and the Navy Academy. So those are the 8 teams in the franchise division. Now, here are the rules, right? Because you guys need to understand this, because when you're watching a FAT8 game, you need to understand what I am doing for 2019 and on is creating an entire FAT8 world, right? And this world is going to consist of, like what you're looking at right here. This is the conference standings for the beginning of season 5. So of course these numbers that you see, so where you see rank there, you see the 1 through 8, that is the rank of the team within that division. Now, when you look at the wins-losses column, you will see there in the wins-losses column, as teams are winning and losing, those names are going to be moving up or down in this listing, okay? So there you also see, next to the win-loss column, you see the conference column, right? CONF, okay? That is their wins within the conference itself, okay? So the wins-loss column is going to be the overall wins and losses, because they will be playing out-of-conference games as well. That will not count towards their standing within the conference. So there in the conference column, that will be where you will see their record within the franchise division itself. Okay? The next one is points for. That is how many points they have scored. Those points are going to be accumulating over the course of the season. How many points they have scored. That is going to go towards their offensive rating, right? So the teams who are scoring a lot of points are going to have a higher offensive rating than teams who are scoring less points. Then PA is points against, okay? That's points against. So points against means that is how many points the defense is giving up. So that is how they're going to be ranked in terms of home field advantage, whether they have one of the toughest environments to go in and play, and as well as their defensive rating. So if they're giving up a lot of points, their defense is going to be rated lower than teams who are, not. So teams who aren't giving up a lot of points, they're going to have the higher rated defense. Okay, so that's how we're going to know who's the number 1 defense, who's the number 2 defense, who's the number 3 defense, so forth and so on, right? And then their division standing, their division there on the last column, their division wins and losses there. right? So that's going to determine how the names are going to move up or down this list. So sometimes during games and sometimes after games, that's going to be changing. Also, their national rating, the national poll, their national rating is also going to be changing as well. So that is what this one is. So now let's flip over and let's look at the Dynasty division. So we're gonna talk about the Dynasty division. So here, as you can see, in the Dynasty division, we have Ohio State, number 1 in the Dynasty division and number 1 nationally in the FAT8 conference. Right now, Ohio State is the top team. That is because they're the only team that's played a game right now. So all of this can change. Okay, number 2 is A&T. They're also number 2 in the nationally in the FAT8 conference. Alabama is ranked number 3, both in the division and nationally. The Trojans, USC, they're ranked number 7 nationally, number 4 in the Dynasty division right now. Then you have Calgary, Appalachian State, a new team to the conference, Notre Dame, and Michigan right now ranked at the bottom in the Dynasty division because they have their first loss, right? And now, so now here you can see overall wins for Ohio State. They're 1-0 right now. They're also 1-0 in the conference and 1-0 in their division because Michigan is a division team. So now let's talk about the divisions, right? How this works. So the rules, very simple. Each team is going to play 6 games. 4 of those games have to come from within their division, okay? So that means Ohio State has to play 4 of the 8 Dynasty Division teams in their schedule, on their schedule. And then they are allowed to have 2 games out of their conference. Those 2 games will not count towards their standing within the Dynasty Division. It will count for their overall standing, though, right? Because you still have the points for and the points against, right? So those 2 games can move you up in the national standing, depending on how many points you are scoring, right? So wins and losses overall, then wins and losses within the conference and the division, okay? So here, if you look at Michigan down here at the bottom, you look at the Michigan Wolverines, they lost their opening game, okay? So they're 0-1 overall, 0-1 in the conference because that was a conference game, okay? And then they are 0-1 within their division because they lost to a division game, lost to a division team, a team within their division, okay? So this right here is what we are going to be going by, and I'm going to be popping this graphic up a lot. We're going to be talking about this a lot. When these things change, I'm going to be coming to you guys, and I'm going to be showing you how the standings within the conference is changing, who is rated where. So now, real quick, let's get into the national rankings, how the national rankings work. So I'm going to pull up that graphic real quick. So now let's look at the coaches' media poll, okay? Still sticking with the number 8, not the top 25, the top 8 schools within the FAT8 conference, right? The top 8 schools within the FAT8 conference out of 16, right? Top 8. So right now, Ohio State ranked number 1 nationally. They're number 1. A&T is number 2. Alabama is number 3. Central Arkansas is number 4. North Carolina Central is number 5. Florida A&M is ranked 6. The Trojans, USC, is ranked 7. And Boise State is ranked 8. So again, the only reason that Ohio State right now is ranked number 1 is because Ohio State is the only team with the win in the FAT8 conference right now. All of this is going to be changing. Now, how does the polls work? This is how the polls is going to work in order for you to be nationally. So you can see on the side of the team's names, you see votes, right? You see the votes, okay? So this is how the voting poll, this is how the voting poll is going to work. So we are going to be looking at wins and losses, and we are going to be looking at amount of points scored for and against, right? We're also going to be looking at if you look in the column here, so you see W for wins, the L for losses, that's overall, okay, points. That is how many points the team has scored over the course of the season. So after about 6 games, right, all of those points are going to add up, okay? Then here you see where it says last week, it shows who they played, right? And then this week shows who they're going to play next, okay? So the way that the voting polls is going to work, what I would like for you guys to do, when a game is played, we're going to have a media poll. When a game is played, what I would like for you guys to do at the end of that game, after you watch that game, I want you guys to vote on what team, and it can only be teams who are winning. You cannot vote for teams who lost. You only can vote for teams who are winning. I want you to just put whatever team put the team's name and a number next to that team. So for example, if your vote is Ohio State, wherever you think that they should be rated, you're going to vote Ohio State number 2. Put number 2 next to their name, right? And I'm going to look at the voting polls that you guys are going to be doing. I'm going to look at the voting polls. Remember, you only can vote for teams that are winning. And then I'm going to do a tally of all the votes. Once all of the votes are in, if we got 39 votes in this case, this is generic that I just put here for the time being. If it turns out that 39 votes for Ohio State got 39 votes, they got the most votes, so Ohio State is going to be number 1. That is providing that they are undefeated. When a team loses, all votes are dead for that team. That team cannot be rated at the top. Okay? So, you also only can vote. Yeah, no, that's it. So that's how the voting poll works, right? So you guys are going to vote, and then the coaches are going to vote. Myself and Pope are also going to vote. So we're going to have the coaches poll, and then we're going to have the media poll, right? The media poll essentially is going to be you guys, right? So that is how that is going to work, okay? And so for that, that's it. Now, there's a lot more. I'm at 18 minutes, so I'm going to stop here. There's a lot more that we're going to be doing as I have revamped the entire FAT8. Now, how can teams get into the conference? I'm going to say this in this video. For the next 3 seasons, we are not adding any teams to the FAT8 conference. For the next 3 seasons, we in season 5, we're not adding any teams to the FAT8 conference. I'm giving all 16 teams, this is the new rule for the FAT8. All 16 teams that are in the conference right now that you guys just saw, I'm giving each team 3 years to prove that they deserve to be in the conference. After 3 seasons, we're going to look at that team's overall record. This is how teams can get booted out. We're going to look at that team's overall record. If that team has had 3 losing seasons, where they're just getting demolished, they had 3 losing seasons, then that is when the door will open for another team to come into the conference and take its place, and that team will get booted out, and they have to wait for 3 more seasons before they can reapply. The same thing is going to be the case for new teams coming in. So, new teams coming into the conference, right? New teams coming into the conference will have a 3-year contract in the conference, right? They'll have a 3-year contract within the conference. They have to stay in the conference for 3 years. After 3 years, it will be reevaluated. If they have, a bad record, the same thing is the case. They may get booted out, or they may be offered an extension to stay in the conference. As long as you're winning, you're good. But once you have 3 losing seasons, 3 really, really badly losing seasons, then you're going to get booted out. Okay? That is it, guys. So we're going to be talking about a lot, man. We're going to be talking about the new presentation. Brand new presentation, guys. A brand new presentation I have for you guys for the conference. Brand new presentation. That's coming. There's going to be a lot of details centered around the athletes. We're going to be talking about impact players. We're going to be talking about, all of the star players on the team. We're going to be talking about offensive schemes and defensive schemes, and we're going to be rating the offenses of each team. They're going to have offensive ratings within the conference, offensive ratings and defensive ratings within their division, and we're going to be getting into all of this stuff. And we are also going to, and I've also redesigned the entire recruiting system as well. So you guys are going to be seeing during the games, we're going to be talking about campus visits, what kinds of athletes the teams are targeting. You're going to know who those athletes are. You're going to see little snippets of those athletes training over the courses of the season, and it's going to be an entire world that I'm creating here. And this is what Daddy wanted to do originally, and so I'm finally now going to get around to putting this whole thing together. So sorry to keep you guys for so long, man. I know a lot of people don't stay this long to watch these videos, but I appreciate you